I am Celia, 67 years old, and just settling into retirement after 40 years of teaching elementary school children. The peaceful routine I had imagined for this new chapter was shattered by an unexpected phone call from my daughter-in-law, Diane. "I'm dropping off my 3 kids with you tomorrow. You don't do anything anymore. You can watch them while I travel to Paris for 2 weeks." Her words stung like a slap. I took a deep breath, smiled to myself, and simply hung up the phone. She had no idea what I was about to do. Before I tell you what happened when she dropped those kids at my doorstep, let me know where you're watching from today. Hit that like button if you've ever had someone take advantage of your kindness, and subscribe to hear how I turned the tables. I had been a widow for 5 years when I finally retired. My husband Thomas passed away from a sudden heart attack, leaving me to navigate my later years alone. We had always talked about traveling during our retirement, visiting the national parks we had pinned to our map, taking cooking classes in Italy, and spending winters in Florida. Those dreams faded when he died, but I still looked forward to retirement as a time to rediscover myself. Teaching had been my life for 40 years. I taught 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary, where I was known for my patience and creative approach to education. I believed in hands-on learning, in letting children explore and discover, rather than forcing them to memorize facts. This philosophy had sometimes put me at odds with more traditional educators, but my results spoke for themselves. I had boxes of thank you letters from former students, many now parents themselves who credited me with inspiring their love of learning. My son James had married Diane 12 years ago. He worked as an engineer, often traveling for projects, while Diane had climbed the corporate ladder to become a marketing executive at a luxury fashion brand. She was beautiful, ambitious, and extremely image-conscious. Everything in her life was curated for perfection, including her 3 children, Madison, 10, a serious girl who seemed to carry the weight of her mother's expectations; Tyler, 8, an energetic boy who struggled with sitting still; and little Emma, 4, who was still finding her voice in the family dynamic. From the beginning, my relationship with Diane had been strained. She viewed me as old-fashioned and overly sentimental. I found her parenting style rigid and performance-oriented. The children had schedules packed with extracurricular activities aimed at creating the perfect college applications rather than happy childhoods. Still, I tried to maintain a cordial relationship for James and my grandchildren's sake. There had been incidents over the years where Diane had taken advantage of my willingness to help. Last-minute requests to watch the children when her nanny cancelled. Expectations that I would drive hours to attend school events with barely any notice. Comments about my appearance or home that were thinly veiled criticisms. I usually accommodated her requests and ignored the jabs, telling myself it was worth it to spend time with my grandchildren. My retirement plan had been simple: spend the first month catching up on sleep and reading the stack of novels by my bed, then gradually explore new hobbies like pottery and water aerobics at the community center. I had joined a book club and a gardening society. I had even signed up for a beginner's photography class starting in the fall. I wanted my days to have structure, but also spontaneity, something teaching had rarely allowed. That first week of retirement had been glorious. I slept until 8, instead of rising at 5. I enjoyed leisurely breakfasts on my patio, watching the birds at my feeder instead of rushing out the door with a travel mug. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in months due to end-of-year teaching obligations. I was just beginning to feel the weight of 4 decades of responsibility lifting from my shoulders when the phone rang. It was that call from Diane that would ultimately change everything between us, though neither of us could have predicted how. I was watering my new herb garden when my phone rang that Tuesday afternoon. Seeing Diane's name flash across the screen, I briefly considered letting it go to voicemail, but my ingrained politeness won out. "Hello, Diane. How are you?" I answered, trying to sound cheerful. "Celia, I need a favor. No greeting, no asking about my day, just straight to what she needed. Typical." "What can I help with?" I asked, setting down my watering can. "I'm going to Paris for a business trip tomorrow. Last minute thing, very important clients. James is in Seattle for that bridge project until next month. I need someone to watch the kids." Her tone suggested this was already decided, not something she was asking permission for. Before I could respond, she continued, "I'm dropping them off tomorrow morning. It's for 2 weeks. Their nanny's on vacation, and my mother is having that hip surgery." 2 weeks, I stammered, shocked at the presumption. "Diane, I've just retired. I have plans and commitments." That's when she said it, the words that would echo in my head for days. "You don't do anything anymore, Celia. You're retired. You can watch them while I travel. It's not like you have a job to go to." 40 years of teaching children to be kind and respectful apparently meant nothing to her. 40 years of shaping young minds, of working weekends and evenings, grading papers and preparing lessons, of spending my own money on classroom supplies, of mediating conflicts and drying tears and celebrating victories. According to Diane, I now did nothing. The kids already know. Madison has a science project due next week. Tyler has soccer on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And Emma needs her special blanket for nap time. Oh, and Madison is doing this new gluten-free thing, so you'll need to get special bread. My thoughts raced. James was away, but surely he knew about this plan. Had he agreed to it without consulting me? Or worse, had Diane not even told him she was leaving the country and dumping their children on me? I wanted to explode, to tell her exactly what I thought of her presumption and disrespect. But 40 years of maintaining classroom composure had taught me something about controlling emotional reactions. Instead, a different thought began forming in my mind. "What time will you bring them over?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. 8 tomorrow. My flight's at 11. She sounded relieved, probably expecting more resistance. "I'll see you then," I said, and hung up before she could add any more demands. I sat on my patio bench, shaking with a mixture of anger and determination. I had spent my entire career teaching children about respect, consequences, and life lessons. Perhaps it was time to teach Diane a lesson she would never forget. I picked up the phone and called my friend Susan, who had been my teaching colleague for 30 years before retiring 2 years earlier. Susan, how would you like to help me execute a little educational plan for my daughter-in-law? The next morning, Diane pulled her luxury SUV into my driveway precisely at 8. The back was packed with luggage toys and equipment that suggested they were moving in permanently rather than staying for 2 weeks. As she unloaded the car, Diane barely made eye contact. Instead, rattling off instructions like, I was a new and incompetent nanny rather than an experienced educator and their grandmother. Madison has piano on Wednesday at 4. Her teacher gets very upset if she's late. Tyler needs his special pillow or he won't sleep, and he has to have the crusts cut off his sandwiches. Emma still has accidents sometimes, so there are pull-ups in this bag. Don't let her drink anything after 6, or you'll be up all night. The children stood awkwardly by the car, Madison already clutching her backpack like a shield, Tyler bouncing on his toes, unable to contain his energy, and little Emma with tears welling in her eyes, holding a tattered blanket to her cheek. Their schedules are in this binder. Diane continued handing me what appeared to be a corporate presentation. I've color-coded each child's activities, meals, and study times. Madison needs at least 2 hours of reading practice daily. Tyler has screen time limits. Only educational games listed on page 4. Emma needs structure, or she gets fussy. I accepted the binder with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. That's very thorough, Diane. You have to be with kids these days, she said dismissively. Competition is fierce even in elementary school. Madison's already prepping for middle school applications. Madison, overhearing this, looked down at her shoes, her small shoulders tensing. Diane checked her watch. I need to go or I'll hit traffic. Children behave for Grandma. Madison makes sure Tyler and Emma follow their schedules. She gave each child a quick, perfunctory hug, then turned to me. I'll text when I land. Have a good trip, I said pleasantly. As her car disappeared down the street, Emma finally let out the sob she'd been holding in. I knelt down, my old knees protesting, and opened my arms. She flew into them, burying her face in my shoulder. It's going to be okay, sweetheart, I whispered. We're going to have a wonderful time together. Madison stood rigidly, clearly uncomfortable with the responsibility that had been placed on her young shoulders. Tyler had already wandered toward my flower beds, his boundless energy seeking an outlet. Mom said, "You have the Wi-Fi password. I need to check my homework portal," Madison said, her voice small but serious. Grandma, can I have a snack? Mom only let us have half a protein bar for breakfast. Because she was busy packing, Tyler called from where he was, now examining a garden gnome. I want Mommy, Emma hiccuped against my neck. Looking at these 3 children, so scheduled and managed and yet somehow overlooked, I knew my plan wasn't just about teaching Diane a lesson anymore. It was about giving these children something they desperately needed a chance to just be kids. I glanced at Diane's meticulously prepared binder, then deliberately placed it on the hall table. Who wants to help me bake cookies? I asked. Tyler's head whipped around, eyes wide. But it's not snack time according to the schedule, and Mom says sugar makes me too hyper. Well, I said with a wink, what Grandma's house doesn't have is a schedule. What it does have is love fun And, yes, occasionally cookies. Madison looked scandalized but intrigued. Emma's tears had paused as she processed this unexpected development. But we have to follow the schedule, Madison insisted, though I detected a hint of hope in her voice that I might disagree. I smiled at my oldest grandchild. Madison, did you know that when your daddy was your age, the only schedule we had was be home when the streetlights come on? Her eyes widened. Really? But how did he get into a good college? My heart broke a little at her question, but I kept my smile steady. By being curious, creative, and kind. Now, who wants to learn my secret chocolate chip cookie recipe? As we headed to the kitchen, I sent a silent promise to these children. The next 2 weeks would change everything. And a warning to their mother. Grandma had her own lesson plan now. That first day with the children was exactly as chaotic as I had anticipated. Following my impromptu cookie baking suggestion, which resulted in flour everywhere, but also the first genuine laughs I'd heard from the children, I discovered just how programmed my grandchildren had become. When lunchtime approached, Madison anxiously informed me they were 30 minutes behind schedule. Mom says every minute of learning lost can never be regained. She recited, sounding far too much like a corporate motivational poster, and not enough like a 10-year-old girl. Tyler couldn't sit still for more than 2 minutes without reaching for an electronic device. When I suggested we go explore the backyard instead, he looked at me as if I'd suggested we fly to the moon. But my educational games have my progress tracked. Mom checks the app. Emma at least seemed relieved by the change of pace, though she kept asking when we would do the proper schedule, with a mix of anxiety and hope in her voice. That evening, after tucking them into beds in the guest rooms, I had lovingly prepared years ago, but which had rarely been used, I called Susan for moral support. "They're like little robots, Susan," I said, keeping my voice low. Madison tried to organize a study schedule for herself when she should have been playing. Tyler actually had withdrawal symptoms when I took away his tablet. And Emma keeps asking if she's doing things right every 5 minutes. "Sounds like Diane has them on a tight leash," Susan replied. "What's your plan now?" I sighed, watching the moonlight filter through my kitchen window. "I'm going to show them what childhood is supposed to be. No schedules, no performance metrics, no constant evaluation. Just exploration, creativity, and love." "Diane will have a fit," Susan warned. "Probably," I agreed. "But these aren't her only children. They're my grandchildren too, and they deserve to know there's more to life than checking boxes on a task list." The next morning, I woke the children with the smell of pancakes instead of Diane's usual 6 a.m. alarm. They came downstairs looking confused but intrigued. "What about our morning calisthenics?" Madison asked, already dressed in workout clothes. "Today we're trying something different," I explained, setting a plate of blueberry pancakes before her. "Today we're going to learn how to enjoy breakfast conversations." "Is that for school?" Tyler asked suspiciously. "It's for life," I replied. "Now tell me one thing you're curious about today." That simple question opened a floodgate. Tyler wondered why squirrels didn't get electrocuted on power lines. Madison wanted to know if clouds weighed anything. Emma asked if fish slept with their eyes open. Instead of rushing to my phone to Google the answers, I said, "Those are wonderful questions. How might we find out?" Their bewildered expressions slowly transformed into excitement as they realized I was inviting them to explore and discover rather than drilling them on correct answers. That day, we conducted backyard experiments about wildlife. We visited the library and checked out books about clouds and fish. We took magnifying glasses to my garden and discovered an entire miniature world living in the soil. When Madison anxiously reminded me about her science project, due the following week, instead of drilling her on facts, I asked, "What are you curious about in science?" "Stars," she admitted shyly. But Mom said a project on plant growth would be more structured and easier to measure results. "Well, you're at Grandma's house now," I said. "And here we follow our curiosity. Let's make a star project that will knock your teacher's socks off." For Tyler, the breakthrough came when I brought out a box of old building blocks that had belonged to James. No batteries, no flashing lights, no achievement levels, just wood and imagination. After initial resistance, but what do I win if I build something good? He spent 3 hours creating increasingly elaborate structures. Emma flourished with simple attention. I read to her not to improve her vocabulary or reading readiness, but because stories are magic. We made up silly songs, we chased butterflies. I taught her the childhood games I had played, like Red Light, Green Light, and Mother May I. Each night, I documented the day's discoveries and joys, taking pictures of beaming faces covered in mud or ice cream or finger paint. I recorded videos of Madison explaining constellations, Tyler proudly showing off a fort he'd built, Emma singing a nonsense song she'd created. Evidence, I thought, not of academic achievement or developmental milestones, but of childhood reclaimed. 1 week in, I made a decision. As the children grew more relaxed and joyful, I realized we needed to take this lesson further. I had a cabin by the lake, about 2 hours away, that Thomas and I had purchased as our retirement getaway. We had planned to spend summers there with grandchildren, teaching them to fish and swim and identify birds. "How would you 3 like to go on adventure?" I asked, over our now traditional pancake breakfast. Their enthusiastic response told me everything I needed to know. We packed that morning, loaded up my sensible sedan, so different from Diane's status symbol SUV, and headed to the lake, leaving Diane's carefully crafted schedules and expectations behind. The cabin stood just as Thomas and I had left it, a sturdy 2-bedroom haven among tall pines with a wide porch facing the lake. My husband had built it largely by himself, adding personal touches like the wind chimes made from fishing lures and the carved wooden signs marking the paths to the dock and forest. "This is where Grandpa and I were going to live during summers when we got old," I explained, as the children tumbled out of the car, their eyes wide with wonder at the sparkling lake view. "It's not very fancy," Madison observed, though not critically. "That's the point, sweetheart. Some of the best things in life aren't fancy at all." The cabin had no Wi-Fi and spotty cell service at best. No television, no gaming consoles, none of the technology that had become such an integral part of my grandchildren's tightly scheduled lives. Instead, there were books, board games, fishing poles, and endless nature to explore. "What do we do here?" Tyler asked, his energy momentarily contained by uncertainty. I smiled. "Everything and nothing. We can fish, swim hike, identify birds, read books, tell stories, roast marshmallows, count stars. Or we can just sit and listen to the lake." "Listen to the lake?" Emma repeated, perplexed. "Come, I'll show you." I led them to the dock, where 3 Adirondack chairs faced the water. We sat silently for several minutes, an eternity, for children used to constant stimulation. But gradually, they began to hear what I did: the gentle lap of waves against the shore, the call of loons across the water, the rustle of leaves in the breeze. "I hear fish jumping," Tyler exclaimed, breaking the silence, but proving he'd been truly listening. "I hear birds talking to each other," Madison added softly. Emma just smiled, her little face peaceful, for perhaps the first time since she'd arrived at my home. Over the next days, we fell into a rhythm entirely unlike Diane's regimented schedule. We woke with the sun and went to sleep when tired. We ate when hungry, not when the clock dictated. The children learned to bait hooks and cast lines, to identify poison ivy and edible berries, to build safe campfires and tell ghost stories that were just scary enough to be exciting. Madison's science project evolved into a beautiful star chart, documenting what we could see from the cabin versus what we'd seen from my house in the suburbs. "Light pollution," she explained knowledgeably, "makes it harder to see the stars in the city." Tyler, whose energy had seemed boundless and often disruptive in confined spaces, thrived in the outdoors. He learned to channel his enthusiasm into physical skills like swimming and hiking. One afternoon, I watched him sit perfectly still for nearly 30 minutes, waiting for a fish to bite. His mother would never have believed it possible. Emma blossomed most dramatically. The shy, uncertain child who constantly sought validation began to venture opinions and make decisions. "I think the blue bait will catch more fish," she would declare. Or, "Can I help make the sandwiches for our picnic?" Her vocabulary expanded as she absorbed the names of plants, animals, and natural phenomena. Occasionally, my phone would buzz with text notifications when I ventured to higher ground. Diane had been texting increasingly frantic messages, having received no responses to her check-ins. I sent brief replies: "Children safe and happy, enjoying nature, reception spotty." Not enough to alleviate her concerns entirely, but enough to prevent her from calling the authorities. I knew what I was doing might seem cruel or vindictive, but watching my grandchildren discover joy in simple pleasures, seeing them breathe freely perhaps for the first time in their young lives, I knew it was necessary. Some lessons can't be taught gently. One evening, as we sat around the campfire roasting marshmallows for s'mores, a treat forbidden in Diane's sugar-free household, Madison suddenly asked, "Grandma, why didn't Mom ever bring us here before?" I considered my answer carefully. "Your mom and I have different ideas about what's important for children. She wants to give you every advantage, every opportunity. That's not wrong exactly. She loves you and wants the best for you." "But you think she's wrong about what's best?" Madison pressed, showing the insight that had always made her special. "I think sometimes adults forget what children really need. We get so focused on preparing you for the future that we forget to let you enjoy the present. Tyler Marshmallow smeared across his cheek, nodded solemnly. Mom always says we have to work hard now so we can succeed later. There's truth in that, I acknowledged. But there's also truth in knowing that childhood is not just preparation for adulthood. It's its own important time with its own lessons and joys. Emma, half asleep against my side, murmured, "I like grandma lessons better than mom lessons." I hugged her close, knowing the confrontation that awaited us back home would be difficult. But looking at these 3 children, their faces flickering in the firelight, I knew I would not regret my decision. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a message that couldn't be ignored. "Coming to get my children today. Where are you?" It was time to face the consequences of my impromptu lesson. As we packed to return home, I prepared the children as best I could. "Your mom will probably be upset with me, not with you. Remember that she loves you even if she shows it differently than I do." "Will we be in trouble?" Tyler asked anxiously. "No," I said firmly. "This was my decision, not yours. And sometimes standing up for what you believe is right means facing someone else's anger." We drove back to my house, the car filled with treasures, collected from our adventure: interesting rocks, pressed wildflowers, a journal. Madison had filled with observations and drawings, physical reminders of an experience I hoped would stay with them far longer than any scheduled enrichment activity. We arrived home to find Diane's car already in my driveway. She burst from the front door as we pulled up, her perfectly styled appearance at odds with the fury and worry on her face. "Where have you been?" she demanded, rushing toward the car. "I've been texting and calling for days. I came home early because I was worried sick." Before I could answer, the children piled out of the car, and what happened next clearly shocked Diane to her core. Instead of running to their mother with relief, they clustered protectively around me. Madison actually stepped slightly in front of me, as if to shield her grandmother from her mother's anger. "Mom, we were at Grandma's lake cabin," Madison explained calmly. "We learned to fish and identify constellations. I finished my science project about light pollution and stars." "We built a real fort," Tyler added excitedly. "Not with blocks, but with actual branches and stuff. And I can swim all the way to the dock now, without stopping." "I catched a fish," Emma declared proudly, her grammar incorrect, but her joy unmistakable. Diane stared at her children as if they were strangers. In some ways, they were. The perfectly groomed, obedient, achievement-oriented children she had left 2 weeks ago had been replaced by slightly sunburned, confidently disheveled young people with spark in their eyes and independence in their posture. "You had no right," she finally said to me, her voice shaking. "You deliberately took them somewhere with no reception, so I couldn't contact them. Do you have any idea how worried I was?" "I sent messages when I could get reception," I replied calmly. The children were safe and happy the entire time. "That's not the point. You undermined my authority. You threw out all their routines, their educational activities, their schedules." "Yes." I agreed simply. I did. My lack of denial or apology seemed to further inflame her. They have piano lessons and tutoring and sports. Madison has a completely different science project she was supposed to be working on. Tyler needs his tablet time for educational games. You've set them back weeks. Madison stepped forward. Mom, I finished the plant growth project too, but the star chart is better. My teacher will like it more because it's original. And I can focus better now, Tyler added. Grandma taught me how to be still inside, even when I feel jumpy. And I'm not scared of the dark anymore, Emma contributed. Grandma showed me the stars are night lights. Diane looked from one child to another, clearly struggling to reconcile these confident voices with the carefully managed children she had left behind. This isn't about schedules or educational activities, I said quietly. This is about respecting me and respecting your children as people, not projects. How dare you lecture me about respect? Diane's voice rose. You, who took my children without permission, who ignored my carefully thought-out routines, who undermined everything I've tried to teach them. Like you respected me when you called and informed me I would be taking your children for 2 weeks because I don't do anything anymore. I countered, keeping my voice level. Like you respected their childhood by filling every moment with productivity and achievement instead of joy and discovery. The front door opened again, and to my surprise, James stepped out. He must have arrived while we were talking. My son looked tired and concerned, glancing between his wife and me, then at his children, who still clustered around their grandmother. "What's going on?" he asked. I got home and found a note from Diane saying she had to go get the kids from Mom's because something was wrong. Your mother kidnapped our children to her lake cabin and turned them against me, Diane said, tears now streaming down her face. That's not true, Daddy, Madison said firmly. Grandma took us on an adventure. We learned so many things, real things, not just for tests. James looked bewildered, then knelt to be eye level with his children. Are you all okay? Were you scared or upset? 3 heads shook in unison. It was the best 2 weeks ever, Tyler declared. Can we go back next weekend? James straightened and looked at me, questions in his eyes. Your wife called me the day after you left for Seattle, I explained calmly. She informed me, not asked me, that I would be watching the children for 2 weeks while she went to Paris. When I expressed surprise, she told me that, since I'm retired, I don't do anything anymore and could easily accommodate her demands. James looked sharply at Diane, who had the grace to flush. I didn't say it like that, she protested, but weakly. You did, I corrected. And after a lifetime of teaching of working harder than most people could imagine, that dismissal hurt deeply. But, more importantly, it showed a fundamental lack of respect. For me, and for the value of experience and wisdom that comes with age, I gestured to the children. So yes, I took them to the cabin. I showed them a different way of being in the world. Not scheduled and managed and constantly evaluated, but free to explore, to fail to discover, to just be children. James turned to his wife. Diane, did you really drop the kids off with Mom without even asking if she was available and say those things to her? Diane's shoulders sagged. The perfect posture she normally maintained gave way to something more human, more vulnerable. I was desperate, she admitted. The Paris trip came up suddenly, and it was a huge opportunity. My mother was having surgery, our nanny was away. I didn't know what else to do. You could have asked, I said gently. Not assumed and demanded, asked. Emma, perhaps sensing her mother's distress, finally broke away from our group and went to Diane, wrapping her small arms around her mother's legs. Don't be sad, Mommy. Grandma taught us how to make you feel better when you're sad. That simple act of compassion from her youngest child seemed to break something in Diane. She sank to her knees and gathered Emma into a real hug, not the quick, distracted embraces I'd observed before. I'm not trying to be a bad mother, she said, her voice choked. I'm trying to give them everything I didn't have: opportunities, advantages, structure. I know, I said, moving closer. But sometimes what children need most isn't another advantage or opportunity. It's time to be curious, to be bored, to figure things out for themselves, to know they're loved not for what they achieve, but simply for who they are. Madison and Tyler, sensing the shift in atmosphere, cautiously approached their mother. She reached out and pulled them into the hug as well, something I'd rarely seen her do. James caught my eye over his family's huddled forms and mouthed, "Thank you." I nodded, feeling the rightness of this moment, difficult though it had been to reach. Later, after the tears had subsided, and we'd moved inside for a civilized discussion over lemonade and the last of our cabin-baked cookies, Diane surprised me. I was wrong, she said simply. About you, about what the kids need, about a lot of things. I've been so focused on giving them what I thought was a perfect childhood that I didn't see I was taking away their actual childhood. It's not too late, I told her. They're still young. There's time to find balance. Would you... She hesitated, then continued. Would you be willing to help me, to show me what you showed them at the cabin? I never had that kind of childhood either. My parents were very achievement-focused too. The honesty of her request touched me deeply. Of course, I said. That's what grandmothers are for, to pass down wisdom not just to the grandchildren, but sometimes to their parents too. James suggested a new tradition, one weekend a month, at the lake cabin as a family. Diane agreed, though I could see the anxiety in her eyes at the thought of so much unstructured time. We'll ease into it, I assured her. Balance is the key. Structure and freedom. Achievement and joy. Both are important. As they gathered their things to head home, Madison handed me the star chart she'd created. I made a copy for you, Grandma, she said, so you can remember our adventure. I will never forget it. I promised, hugging her close. And I knew then that my impromptu lesson had reached far beyond what I'd initially intended. It wasn't just about teaching Diane to respect me, or even about giving my grandchildren a taste of real childhood. It was about healing a family pattern that had been passed down through generations, about showing that love doesn't have to be proven through achievement or measured in productive hours. Sometimes the most important lessons are the ones we never planned to teach. 6 months have passed since that transformative 2 weeks, and the changes in our family have been profound. Diane and I now meet weekly for coffee, where she asks questions about child development and parenting that her own mother never answered. James has reduced his travel schedule to be more present with his family. The children continue to flourish in this new balance between structure and freedom. Madison's star chart earned her not just an A, but special recognition at the science fair. More importantly, she's joined an astronomy club where her genuine curiosity is celebrated. Tyler still has boundless energy, but has learned tools to channel it productively. He's taken up track and field instead of the competitive soccer his mother had pushed. Emma speaks in full, confident sentences now and has developed a love for storytelling that warms my teacher's heart. Our monthly weekends at the cabin have become sacred family time. No devices, no schedules, no expectations except to be present with each other. Diane was awkward at first, unused to unstructured time, and uncertain how to just play with her children. But watching her learn to fish alongside Tyler or identify constellations with Madison has been one of my greatest joys. Most surprising has been my own relationship with Diane. What began as a clash of philosophies has evolved into a partnership. She still values achievement and preparation for the future, but she's learned to balance these with appreciation for the present moment. I still believe in the magic of unstructured childhood, but I've gained respect for the genuine love behind her structured approach. Last weekend at the cabin, I overheard her telling Emma, "Sometimes the most important lessons come from unexpected teachers." She caught my eye across the room and smiled a genuine, unguarded smile that would have been unimaginable 6 months ago. Standing up for yourself doesn't always mean conflict. Sometimes it means showing another way forward, offering wisdom rather than judgment, creating space for growth rather than forcing compliance. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't saying yes to everything asked of you, but showing others what they truly need instead of what they think they want. Have you ever had to teach someone an unexpected lesson about respect or boundaries? Was there a moment when someone took you for granted because of your age or status, and how did you respond? Leave a comment below and share your experience. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life wisdom. And if you know someone who might need this reminder about respecting elders or balancing achievement with joy, share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, it's never too late to teach or to learn, to stand your ground, or to offer grace.